Good evening and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. I am your host, Steve the Cat. It is Monday. It is October 28th. It is 10 p.m. here on the East Coast. We are coming to you live from Steve the Cat headquarters in Northern Virginia. On behalf of the entire cast and crew here at Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, welcome. Now, you may notice things look a little different this time around. We're trying a new streaming platform, and I'm not going to lie, folks, this is my first time using it. So there's only so much you can practice with this stuff without actually going live. So some of this is going to be the first time I've tried to do things. We're going to hope that I know which buttons to push, because that will keep otherwise it's going to be a short broadcast. So question number one is, can I make the slides bigger? We click the button and yes, we can. Okay. Question number two is, can we advance the slides? Yes, we can. Once again, we are coming to you live through the power of the internet. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Facebook. We are live on X. We are live on Twitch. Of course, you can catch the replay of the show on those platforms at any time. You can also catch full episodes that have been uploaded to Rumble if that is your viewing software of choice. We don't have the ability to live stream to Rumble from this platform, but we do upload to Rumble, so you can view full uncut episodes on Rumble if you do choose to do so. Now, in a minute, we're going to get the episode of the show going. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is a pre-recorded show. It is not a live show. However, we do the live watch party so you can interact with other people in the chat. You may notice that we actually have comments on the screen where you can see them. That's one of the things that we've been able to figure out with this new platform, is a way to put the comments up so everyone can see them. So you can see comments. The good news is you can see comments from people from multiple platforms. I see comments from X. I see comments from Facebook. I see comments from what looks like Twitch. So we can see the comments from all the different streaming platforms at the same time. Now, before we go any farther, I have to say thank you to the fine folks at the PBDC Collective Incorporated. The home of this show, Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, is brought to you exclusively by PBDC Incorporated. Whether you're interested in horror movies, true crime, creepy stories, weird history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have something for you. It is cool content for nonconformists. You can find us at psychobunnydc.com. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Rumble, X, and Twitch. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Discord, and you can find us on Patreon. So wherever you go, you can find us on the web. Now, 4 weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we talked about a movie called The Third Saturday in October. It was not good. That's all I can say about that film. It was designed to look like an old film from the 1970s, even though it was made just a couple of years ago. And I guess the nicest thing I can say is if you're one of those people that enjoys intentionally bad films, you get your money's worth with this one. But otherwise, Third Saturday in October, not so good. 2 weeks ago, we talked about a movie called The Brain, an old creature feature from the 1980s. A little underwhelming, but better than a Third Saturday in October. Tonight, we are talking about a good one. We're talking about a film called Clown. Now, this was not directed by Eli Roth, but it was produced by Eli Roth. And Eli Roth does make a cameo appearance as a clown in this movie. So tonight's episode is going to be about Clown. And with that comes the big test. Can I press the correct button to get the pre-recorded episode going? So here we go with the magic buttons. Video storage, and here we go. Good evening and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, your place for a fun conversation about horror movies. Tonight we talk about a pretty brutal creature feature that's sure to play on your fear of clowns. We'll talk about that film, plus we'll talk about a couple of competent slasher films and other stuff I watched this week. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're glad to have you here. Now pour yourself a drink and sit back because here we go.
Very few people know the true origin of what we call the clown.
Elmo the Clown!
It lived up in the mountains with the skin white as snow and the red nose blistered by the cold.
Hey, guess what? The clown is driving you to school today. Yeah, cool.
No, wait, honey, I have
Gotta
a
hurry,
crew.
because Jack's late for school.
I have a crew waiting for me. I have to
figure it
get
out.
changed.
Bye.
Come on.
Love you. Love you.
You don't understand. I can't get it off.
It's not a costume. It's skin and hair of a demon. Ow. This is a bad idea.
So, tell me, Mr. Carlson, how are we going to get this thing off of me?
It lured children out of the villages into its cave. 5 children. 1 child for every month of winter.
Guys, I think there's someone in here.
Probably Master Chief.
No matter what I say, you don't let me out. Promise me.
There you are.
Bring me a child.
What is it, honey? Up there! What?
All right, let's get into our featured film review for the evening. Tonight, we are going to talk about a film called Clown. Yes, Clown. That's all there is to it. Not Revenge of the Clown, not the evil clown, just Clown. This is a horror film that was released in the year 2014, directed by John Watts, and the cast includes Laura Allen, Andy Powers, and Peter Stormare. Also includes Eli Roth in a costume. Eli Roth produced this film, did not direct it, but he did produce it. John Watts directed the film, but Eli Roth does play the clown. Let's get into setting your expectations for this film. If you're going to sit down to watch Clown, what you should expect is a dark and gory horror movie that plays on a fear of clowns. If you like Terrifier, you might like Clown. If you like Reanimator, you might like Clown. Those movies both kind of tough to watch depending upon your sensitivities. Same goes for Clown. We'll talk about why that's the case in a bit. But for the same reasons that Terrifier might be kind of a tough watch, Clown can be kind of a tough watch, although the special effects in Clown, in my opinion, are superior. And it is, in my opinion, a better film. It is tough to watch for some of the same reasons. So let's get into setting your sights for this film. This is the scale we like to use. On the far left side of the scale, we have very campy films, such as the Jason X. On the far right side of the scale, we have very serious films, such as The Silence of the Lambs. As always, this scale is not intended to show the quality of the film, but is intended to indicate what your mindset needs to be going into the film if you're going to enjoy it. Clown, pretty much dead down the center. We're going to put it a little bit to the campy side of the spectrum because it is on one level kind of ridiculous. Just clowns being the constant theme throughout the movie. But it's more of a blockbuster, big screen kind of film. Not as campy as some of the overtly 80s campy stuff we've done on this show. Now, before we go any farther, we need to do our vocabulary lesson. This, of course, is the part of the show where we discuss new and innovative words and phrases in an effort to stay ahead of social media bots and algorithms that would otherwise try to ban our conversation. Social media bots and algorithms are always getting smarter, so our language must continue to evolve to stay ahead of them. 2 terms this week, the review terms. First term, denoggening. Denoggening simply means the action of removing the head of a person or animal. It's another way of saying decapitate, in other words. Our second term is can't touch this, which is a slang expression for striking a character with a hammer, often but not always on the head. Yes, hammer time, can't touch this, whack somebody with the hammer. This, of course, is derived from the song title You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. If you don't know it, look it up. But those are our vocabulary terms for the week. Please keep these terms in mind. They will become important later in the episode. So let's get into a summary of this film. In this film, all Jack McCoy wants for his 7th birthday is to have a clown perform at his birthday party. Well, we don't know that that's all he wants for his 7th birthday, but we do know that he wants a clown to perform at his 7th birthday party. Unfortunately, the clown backs out. Well, when the scheduled clown backs out at the last minute, Jack's father, Kent McCoy, steps in to fill the clown's shoes. Using an old costume he found in the basement of a house he is selling. Yes, Kent McCoy is a real estate agent, happens to be selling a house that happens to be full of old costumes, so he borrows one out of the basement. One minor problem. Now Kent cannot get the costume to come back off. The wig is stuck to his head, the rubber nose is stuck to his nose, the clown suit is stuck to his skin. Oh, one other minor problem. Kent is transforming into a demon that eats children. Yes, you heard that right, a demon that eats children. That brings us to our villain profile. Our villain, of course, is the clown, or as it's called, Cloyne. Here's a picture for you. The clown is of the supernatural demon with rainbow hair class. Its special powers include invulnerability, claws, teeth, immense strength, and an unrelenting appetite for children. Yes, there's that thing again, an appetite for children. Now, the clown doesn't really have a signature weapon, but it does have a signature technique. The clown eats his victims, bones and all, later spitting up the bones. So that is our villain for this week, the clown, or Cloyne as it was called once upon a time. So let's get into the things I liked about this film. Right off the bat, this film had good production values. It looks like a feature film and not a student project. Some of the stuff we have done on this show has been very cheap looking. This is not a cheap looking film. It looks competently produced and competently directed. The film builds tension effectively. The practical special effects are very good, and yes, they are good throughout the film. The cast is likable, and the character of Kent is sympathetic, at least up to a point. Kent didn't really do anything wrong. He didn't ask for this. He just happened to try on a costume that happened to be cursed, and so goes the fate of Kent. But we're sympathetic to Kent for a long time throughout this film, since he didn't really ask for what is happening to him. Finally, the film is not afraid to violate some horror film taboos. There's that talk about eating children again. Now, there are some things that could have been better about this film, and we're going to start with the obvious one right off the bat. The clown's victims are children. If this is going to be a problem for you, then you need to skip this film. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not watch this film and then criticize it as being a bad film. You knew what you were getting into. This is not a film for you if you're going to have a problem with victims being children. If you've got a weak stomach for that sort of thing, just give this one a pass. The film does start out slowly and it drags in places. The pacing is kind of uneven throughout the film. The entire film, frankly, is based upon a gigantic coincidence, specifically that Kent needs to dress as a clown for his son's birthday party and happens to find an old clown costume in a basement that happens to be cursed, happens to be available in the basement of a house he happens to be selling. It's all a giant coincidence. They don't really make any effort to tie it together. It's just a giant coincidence. And finally, the film is darkly violent and gory. Again, if this is going to be a problem for you, you need to skip this film. Don't watch the film and then complain that it's a bad film. You are warned in advance. It is darkly violent and gory. If that is not your thing, give this one a pass. Don't eat at a Chinese restaurant and then say it's a bad restaurant because you don't like Chinese food. Don't watch a darkly violent and gory film if you don't like darkly violent and gory films. So let's get to Steve's scorecard for this film. Right off the bat, kills. I counted 7. That includes dogs, and there are more kills off screen. I've only counted the stuff that happens on screen. Bare breasts, drum roll please. None. It's not that kind of film. There's no bare breasts in this one. Denoggening, our vocabulary term for the week. There are 2. Nose popping. There is 1. What is a nose popping? Well, you need to watch the film, but it involves a rubber clown nose that doesn't want to come off. Arm snapping. You get 1 of those. Car crashes. You get 1. It's not so much a car chase, just a car crash. Can't touch this, our other vocabulary term for the week. We have 1 of those. And finally, the only way that you can kill the demon is to decapitate the demon. Therefore, we have attempted denoggenings throughout the film. I counted 3. In addition to the 2 actual denoggenings in the film, we have 3 attempted denoggenings. But that's not all. With your viewing of this film, you get a number of bonus features, including but not limited to unimpressed subcontractors. Yes, if you are a real estate agent and you are having work done on a house and you are meeting with your team of subcontractors, wearing a clown costume, not the way to go. Fun with power tools. Yes, there is some fun with power tools in this film. Hand-biting action. More fun with power tools. Boy, there is some definite do not try this at home, kids, material in this movie. It's not a costume. You get evil demon clown dog action. You get rainbow blood spatter action. You get jaw wiring and unwiring action. You get sledgehammer action. And finally, and most disturbing of all, you get, yes, Chuck E. Cheese in full swing is part of this film. The Kid Zone is rocking with kids. And yes, you are thrown into the middle of it. Let's get to Steve's final score for this film. We're going to give it 3 paws out of 4. I was kind of on the fence. I thought about giving this one 2.5 paws. I decided to give it 3 because of good production values and good special effects. We're going to say that this is a darkly gory horror film that you may find tough to watch depending upon your tolerance for young victims. Good production values and special effects, but subpar pacing and slow at times. So that is Clown. That is our featured film review for the week. Thank you very much for joining us.
And now a word from our benevolent overlords at PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror.
sky, the world in flames. Nuclear fire, unforgiving claims. I survived through the dust and ash. Came back in time to give you a chance.
We've come to the end of another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, but before we go, as is our tradition, it's time to talk just a minute about other stuff Steve watched this week. We watched a couple of slasher films this week, starting with this one. This one is called Bloody Murder 2: Closing Camp. This is a 2003 American horror film that I found on Tubi free with ads. Now, I watched this without seeing the original film Bloody Murder, which I don't know if it is even available on Tubi. This is one of those sequels that you don't really need to have seen the first film in order to follow the sequel. It's kind of more of a reboot than a sequel. Anyway, in this film, Camp Placid Pines has a sad history, with multiple victims being killed in an incident years earlier. Now, presumably this is the first film. I don't know. I've not seen the first film. But presumably this is the 5 years later sequel. Anyway, the campers have gone home, and a group of counselors are closing the camp down for the season. And, of course, a guy in a mask has to show up. So the thing about this film, it's surprisingly solid. It is a surprisingly solid slasher film, not outstanding, but much more solid than I expected. On the pro side, the story, although highly derivative of Friday the 13th, the story moves along at about the right pace and delivers a surprisingly competent whodunit style of slasher film, if you can get past the fact that it is incredibly derivative of Friday the 13th. On the con side, the production values look pretty cheap, and because of this, the film feels older than it actually is. It's not shot in a theatrical aspect ratio. It's shot in almost a 4:3 or almost a square aspect ratio, which just makes it look older than it really is. I don't know if that's something they were going for when they made this film. Maybe they were trying to make it look like a film from the 80s, but it's from 2003, so I'm not sure that that's the case. It might just be that this was just a cheap film. But anyway, it doesn't look that great necessarily, but overall, it is a surprisingly solid film. So the verdict on this one is it's worth watching if you're in the mood for a generic slasher film. I was surprised. So what else did we watch this week? Well, we also watched a film called Fear Farm. Fear Farm is a 2020 American horror film that I found on Amazon Prime. I believe it is also available on Tubi free with ads, but in this case I watched it on Amazon Prime. Now, I am pretty sure we've talked about this film before, although it's possible we talked about the sequel Fear Farm 2. So regardless, I watched it this week, so I watched it again. We're going to talk about it anyway. In this film, 4 college students compete for a big cash prize at the local corn maze until they realize they're being hunted by the family that runs the maze. And so you get lots of running and screaming and people lost in the corn maze being pursued by a variety of baddies in masks with a variety of different signature weapons. So one thing to keep in mind about this film is you have to take this as a bit of a horror comedy in order to enjoy it. That said, on the pro side, this film has pretty good production values for a slasher film. The film is competently executed, at least as slasher films go. On the con side, the film follows a group of 4 college students. So since it's only 4 students, the kill count is low by necessity, and a great deal of the film is people running away and hiding. There's just no way around that when you've only got 4 characters that you're following in the film. The verdict overall, I found this one worth watching if you're in the mood for a campy slasher film. So both films this week kind of surprised me positively, worth watching. In the case of Fear Farm, the bonus is that there is also a sequel. I do remember watching the sequel, and I do remember that you need to make sure you watch the original first. Otherwise, you're going to be a bit confused as to what is going on. So I can recommend Fear Farm. I can recommend Bloody Murder 2 Camp Closing. And that is other stuff Steve watched this week.
That wraps up another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We're glad you were able to drop by. If you did enjoy the show, then please check us out on social media. You can find Steve the Cat on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or I believe they're calling it X these days. So please stop by and hit that subscribe button. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively through the PBDC Collective Incorporated, now legally incorporated and still your heartbeat of horror. You can find us on the web at psychobunnydc.com, or you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, Rumble, and Patreon. That wraps up the show for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with another all-new episode for you to enjoy. But for now, thank you for watching and have a great week. Good night, everybody.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. This has been, I think, the largest live crowd we've ever had on Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. So thank you so much. Remember to like and share if you are inclined to do so. I really appreciate the shares. With that, we're going to wrap up. In 2 weeks, we will be talking about a very funny film called Benny Loves You. So that is coming up in 2 weeks. But for now, we are finished for the evening. So thank you so much. Wrapping things up. Good night, everybody.